So I think that's a common misconception is that you have control over what other people say necessarily about you. You don't have direct control over that, but you can influence that story by controlling the narrative that you set about your own personal brand. Most common misconception is what personal branding actually is. So I get asked, what's the difference between personal branding versus reputation? Now, reputation is the story that people say about you when you're not in the room, versus
Mhm.
personal branding is the story that you tell when you are in the room. Small, repetitive actions is such a good way to get over perfectionism because you're not thinking, I need this entire thing to be perfect. You're like, I'm going
Mhm.
to have this teeny tiny step be perfect or hopefully good enough. And then we're just
Mhm.
going to repeat over time. And is to think, what are ways that you can step back from thinking, is this perfect? And think about, is this good enough? And then number two, what are teeny tiny little steps that we can break down and that we can repeat over time?
Have you ever felt like the universe only rewards people who are bold, extroverted, and constantly on? Today's guest is on a mission to prove that quiet can be iconic. Goldie Chan has been called the Oprah of LinkedIn and one of the top 10 most sought after brand evangelists. She's been featured everywhere from Fast Company to Forbes, but most importantly, Goldie is an introvert who has built a global brand by leaning into who she actually is, a quiet introvert. If you've ever wondered how to stand out without shouting, how to show up consistently without burning out, or how to build a brand when you'd rather recharge in silence, stay right here. This conversation is your permission to build influence in a way that actually fits your nervous system.
Clever crew, we found another one. We found another personal branding expert, author, writer that's also an introvert. So this is for you guys. This is for the introverts. We're so excited. Goldie, thank you so much for making time in your whirlwind book tour. This is day 14, 15, 16.
15, 16, who knows at this point? Yes, we're under day 20 for sure on my book tour. So,
There we go. There we go.
Thanks so much for making time for us.
yeah, I'm so
Yes.
excited to be here. I think one of the things that I know maybe other introverts are familiar with is overloading your plate.
Hmm. Me.
Yeah.
Yes. Guilty.
Mhm.
In fact, let's actually start there because I feel like one of the first questions that popped into my mind, Candace's too, is how is your energy management during this time? You know, what because there's seasons of life, seasons of business, but when you're like in it, what has that been like? And what are the things you're doing just to keep 100 and to not want to say, JK, let's unpublish the book.
Wait,
Okay.
can we show they need to see the book. They need to know the title of the book. Let's start there.
Yeah, so here's the book, Personal Branding
Mm,
for Introverts. It matches my hair. It's a little bit of a lighter green color, but it's available in most Barnes and Nobles right now across the US if you want to go in person and get a copy,
So cool.
or through your local bookstore. Please shop local. So I have to say that.
yes.
So, yes, gosh, so where were we? Oh, we were talking about I'm all over the place right now. We were talking about how I manage my energy, and I wanna say I have an entire section of my book that I talk about introvert battery, and I talk about how, as introverts, we just have a finite amount of energy,
Mhm.
and it's really important to replenish that. That being said, I knew that the last 2 weeks for me were going to be a lot of talking, a lot of socializing. I called my book tour the No Small Talk book tour, which
Totally.
hopefully both of you like. I think you
We're
do.
allergic to small talk. We're severe allergy. Like,
Yes. Yes.
ah,
So I already knew the last 2 weeks were just going to be really tough, and I have another 2 weeks of kind of wrapping up a lot of the big, promo stuff that I'm doing, and I think I went in with this mindset of, "Okay, I'm going to push really hard for this month, and then next month is my resting, really like turn off the camera, turn off the mic. I won't be doing a lot of traveling, hopefully that month. So it'll be my
Mhm.
easy month, and that's my recharge month. I think it's so important to recharge your introvert batteries. In fact, I'll say another term that I used was also introvert hangover,
Oh, yeah.
which if you're familiar with that, where you're just like, "Oh my gosh, I just feel super exhausted," the same way you feel when maybe you've, you know, enjoyed too many things.
You know.
Yeah.
So, and it's so good to have something like that to look forward to, right? You know, you've got that on the
Yes.
horizon. Even when you just said that, I was like, oh, thank God, Goldie's got December. She'll be fine. She'll be good. Like, I'm rooting for you in that recharge month.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Yes, I'm so excited to set aside time. I do this also at conferences is I set aside just crash time where I can go to my hotel room and sit quietly by myself and not have to talk to other people because it can be so exhausting.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. Kat and I have both learned that we need like a day to ease into life after we get back from conferences too. So we're not just running as soon as we get home, like a day on the couch or
Mhm.
a day to take a walk and just relax and recharge before you dive into your inbox. When you get back from a conference, that's something that we do as well.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And that's so important to set aside that time. And I think it's funny because I think so many introverts naturally find that that's a good solution because you're so tired. Like, I feel like
Mhm.
I spend a lot of my time being like, I'm so exhausted or so overwhelmed,
Yeah.
and I need time to be a lot less overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's get into because one of the things we love about Not Nice Clever is us sharing through the lens of being introverts. And when it comes to personal branding and you know, grabbing the mic and having something to say and showing up,
Yes.
what do you think that most people get wrong about personal branding or like a common misconception that you see?
Well, first of all, I want to start with the definition then. So, I think the most common misconception is what personal branding actually is. So I get asked, what's the difference between personal branding versus reputation? Now, reputation is the story that people say about you when you're not in the room, versus
Mhm.
personal branding is the story that you tell when you are in the room. And that could be an amazing digital room like this one, so I think that's a common misconception is that you have control over what other people say necessarily about you. You don't have direct control over that, but you can influence that story by controlling the narrative that you set about your own personal brand.
When did you discover that for yourself, Goldie?
Oh my gosh, I think I actively discovered this. It's so funny because I was running other people's personal brands before my own. So I had over a decade of experience doing marketing and branding and social media, a lot in tech and a little bit
Mm.
in entertainment. I lived in the Bay Area and now I live in Los Angeles. So those two industries make a lot of sense. And I remember I was working at this,
That they do.
right? I was working at this very small agency and they were having me at the time do tweets for C-level executives. So I was sitting there and the only directive they gave me was they just need to be tweets. And there was no other, and these are executives at a Fortune 500 company, like maybe a Fortune
Wow.
50 company. And I thought, "Oh my gosh, this is so off the rails that I can just write
Anything.
Whatever.
not whatever, but almost anything, and have that be directed, into their social media. So that was my first experience was actually ghostwriting for other people, personal brand. But for my own personal brand, it was so fascinating. In 2017, I started creating videos on LinkedIn and I ended up doing over 800 daily consecutive videos from 2017 to 2019 ish.
800?
800 daily consecutive videos. And
Wow.
most of those I shot myself, I edited myself, and caption to myself. So because of that, I started building my personal brand based off of that. And I didn't start by thinking I'm going to do 800 videos. I started by thinking I'm going to take 1 month off work. And in that 1 month, I'm going to do like 2 videos. And that's going to be really impressive when I go interview again for my next job, right? People are going to be so impressed that I did something during that 1 month off. So that's my thought logic and in my form of like really being active in 2017 was like I was going to make a couple of these videos on the most uncool platform there is, LinkedIn, and no one was going to watch this. But it was a good thought exercise to say, as your next head of marketing, which is the role I had left, as your next head of marketing, here's what I've been experimenting with during my time off, just to show I was really active. And it just gained so much traction, and people started commenting on it. People started discovering my videos very early on. I was featured in a couple of internal keynotes on like, here are some interesting things happening with LinkedIn video. This is not what we predicted, but here's what people were doing. And I was one of those people that internally LinkedIn was talking about. So it just ended up opening doors, and I ended up making a personal brand that was based off what I was interested in and based off of what my expertise was on, which was branding and marketing, which was what most of the videos that I did were on. And then also because my own person, very distinctive looking, I think it was a really interesting time for me to start standing out. And as an introvert, I'm sure both of you know, you want to have a personal brand, but the moment you start standing out, it actually is a little scary.
Yeah,
It
absolutely.
is. Well, because then they're looking to you and they're like, "Okay, well, Goldie, what do you think about this? Or we want your opinion on
Right.
this." And you're like,
Right.
"There's gonna be hundreds of people there. There's going to be thousands of people."
And
So
I will say I'm an introvert with anxiety. So I remember one of the first major overseas keynotes I gave, I had a literal panic attack on stage. If you asked me what I said during the second half of my keynote,
you're like blacked out.
I don't know, but I definitely know I did because I, I finished it and I walked off the stage and I remember just like my hands were numb, like that feeling of just ultra anxiety. And I slept for 3 days after that. And it was an international trip, so I'd planned on doing sightseeing, and I just did not speak to anyone for 3 days after that. Um, and I hope for every introvert out there that you build in more time for yourself so you don't crash like that. But I'm sure we've all had moments of crashing like that.
How did you decide to do daily videos after you did your first few and they did well? Like, what made you decide? How did 800 become a thing?
Yeah, so I think what ended up happening is I shot 2 in a row. So there was one day and I shot 2 of them, and I was like, "I'm gonna upload these 2 videos." And it was funny because the 2 became 10. The 10 became 20, and at 20, I'm like, "I might as well finish the month." So it very quickly went from 2 to 31. I'll just say that to start, or 30, whatever, how many days in the month of the first month I ever started on. But it very quickly went from 2 to 30. Now the next number I thought of, once I passed 30, then I thought, okay, I've taken my full month off work, but maybe there's something here because people were starting to talk to me about the videos I was creating. So I thought maybe I'll just take one more month off of work, and I will maybe try to figure out how to consult and do 2 months off of work and do this creative venture. And it was very interesting because by the 3rd month, I had clients. And what is really funny is I had to build in reverse. So a lot of people start their agency, their consultancy, and then they say, I want to get these clients. I'm going to get these clients in the door. I got clients, and then I had to start my consultancy to house the clients that I had gotten from creating videos. And by the end of 3 months, and that's around 100 videos, I had I had all these clients suddenly, and I had work, and I was working with these major brands, and a lot of things had happened for me in 3 months. Um, and I thought, "I'm just gonna keep going, and I'm going to keep going for a little bit longer." That's my mentality. I was like, "I'm gonna keep doing a few more," and I really thought I was going to stop at 50, and then 50 became 100. And then when you're at 100, you kind of have this, like, beautiful stopping point, right? Um, and I thought at that point, I was just so used to it because it was now muscle that I thought,
Mhm.
"Okay, I'm just gonna do a couple more." And then 100 very weirdly became very easily like the 365, and I ended up having a party in Dallas, Texas. I remember with some of my followers, and people showed up, and everybody got green cupcakes, and it was so fascinating that all these people also only knew me off of LinkedIn, which at the time, now I think there's a pretty heavy push for LinkedIn creators to exist, but at the time, no one knew that that existed or even that there was a video function on LinkedIn. So it was very interesting meeting people who were either super fans of me or people who were just like, "You do what on what platform? Like, are you a YouTuber then? Is that what you do?" And I'm like, "No, I don't make videos at all on YouTube or any of the other platforms. It is on exclusively LinkedIn." So that's how I got to 800. It was almost you start at the top of a mountain and you, like, start like, climbing down a little very gently, and then all of a sudden you are like, "Oh my gosh," and you start tumbling, and I think that's how I got to that number is all of a sudden I was just tumbling, and it just became a thing where I just was making it. Every single day I was just making it, and then really after the 2 years, I was just like, "Oh, okay, I feel like this feels like a good stopping point." And also, I think then I was just like, "I really want to I'm so burned out from making so many daily videos. I want to also just reassess where I am with my
Yeah.
own career." And so I very intentionally at that point stopped, right? I was rolling down the hill and I said, "Okay, I'm gonna grab onto this ledge and I'm going to stop for a moment and I'm gonna really think about what I want to do." And I will say this, having done it for so long, it was a real loss of identity for me when I stopped.
Interesting.
Because you became the girl who did daily videos?
Yes.
Mm.
But then so you do that for so long, and, one of the things that we, have read when you were featured in Forbes, you talked about repetition as recognition, right? And that's how you
Yes.
start to become known. But when you stop doing that, why did you stop? And what were some symptoms or, like, signals you were looking for? Because I feel like
Yeah.
it's easy to just keep going,
Oh, yeah.
but to be intentional, I think is really important for somebody who's introverted where, we skew higher, tend to on emotional intelligence and just being very self-aware. So, can you speak to that transition?
Now, I wish I could be like, it was a calm, thought process I went through and that it was like this very elevated decision that I made. And I will say at that point, I was so burned out. I was just like burned to a little crisp. I was like a little crisp of a human being at that point because I was still making these videos. And even though towards the end, I especially had a team that was working on them, but it felt like so much energy and time that even the amount of energy that I was putting in, even though it was less than when I started, it still felt like so much. And because my identity was so directly tied to it, I wanted to stop and think about doing something a little bit different just because I didn't want to become stale in who I was or even the kind of content that I created. So I stopped so I could say, okay, I'm going to stop right here. And from here, I'm going to really pause and think, do I want to come back to this? Because I could always come back to it. Or do I want to do something completely different? And I think it's funny because I paused for really a short amount of time and then 2020 happened. So if you're familiar with 2020, it
We
just
are.
also was such a change in all of our lives and like the way we communicate, the way we were creating content. So it ended up being just also a very, I think, the timing was really funny in that way, right? So,
Mhm.
I think if I'd continued into 2020, I probably would be maybe even doing those videos now, right? But it is a relief because I will tell you, I did not skip a single day for those 2 years that I did it. So weekends, right, weekdays, I literally would be traveling overseas and I would be catching the Wi-Fi to upload, and at the time, there's no scheduling tool. So this was manually uploading from my desktop
Wow.
every single
Wow.
time. So I literally have a video of me at some point running down like an airplane, the ramp that you get onto the airplane because my original video, which was edited and very thoughtful, wouldn't upload. So I uploaded this tiny video of just blurry video of me like running and trying to catch this plane, being like, it's still within the 24-hour zone. And that's the thing. I started
Wow.
to realize these videos were not always the caliber that I wanted them to be. But, the joy of that was it did help me get over some of my own perfectionism that I,
Mhm.
of course, had. So, yes, the choice was not necessarily like this beautiful elevated choice that I had, but a lot of it was taking care of myself and my own energy and knowing that I was becoming progressively more and more drained by doing those daily videos, and it wasn't sustainable for me creatively or energetically. And this is also, I have to bring this up, regardless of your views on AI, this is pre-AI. So none of these video ideas were coming from AI. None of the editing was AI editing. It was all 100% human.
That also bears mentioning, truly.
Yes.
So you mentioned perfectionism, which is
Yes.
something that a lot of us struggle with. Can you give a few tips to the clever crew on how they can manage or overcome, if that's even a thing, some perfectionism in their lives?
Yes, so one of my friends has a great book out. It's called The Good Enough Job, and I think good enough is such a beautiful phrase. Um, I think it's so healthy for us to do good enough jobs at work and sometimes good enough jobs with our own personal projects. Because I think some of us, we do that in our say if we have a 9 to 5, we'll do that in our 9 to 5, we'll do good enough, but then in our own personal lives, we're like, "We're gonna go above and beyond," or maybe that's reverse. But I think having the idea of good enough in our lives is so, so powerful. I'm reading so many books that have the word tiny in the title, like Tiny Habits, Tiny Experiments is another one I'm just started reading that's so good.
Oh,
And
I just
what's
ordered that one. It
did
was,
you? It's so good. You need to not to get very excited, but
yes.
there's a companion group for Nest Labs, and I just joined them, and I'm very much lurking and just saying I'm going to speak, I think, to their group next month at some point,
Okay.
but they do such great work in that they're encouraging joy and
Mhm.
small repetitive actions. And I think that's so powerful. Small repetitive actions is such a good way to get over perfectionism because you're not thinking, I need this entire thing to be perfect. You're like, I'm going to
Mhm.
have this teeny tiny step be perfect or hopefully good enough. And then we're just
Mhm.
going to repeat over time. And I feel like that for me has helped me so much with perfectionism and hopefully helps others with their perfectionism is to think, what are number one, what are ways that you can step back from thinking, is this perfect? And think about, is this good enough? And then number two, what are teeny tiny little steps that we can break down and that we can repeat over time?
Can you give an example of like a tiny step that you're taking right now?
Yeah, so one of the tiny steps that I'm taking right now that I hope is helpful is I am trying to be better about connecting with a couple of my colleagues' friends. So I'll check in every couple of days and just say, "Hey, what do you need help with?" And I find it's like such a better way of knowing what they need help with instead of what will happen for me is 3 months later. I'm just being honest, right? 3 months later, I will be like, "Oh my gosh, we should hang out. What have you been up to?" are you still alive? I hope you're still alive. Like, where do you live? Do you still live in my city? Do you live in a different country? What are you up to? Are you at the same job? And I find that when I take the tiny step of reaching out and simply sending a DM or a text message, and it's not the big, like, let's catch up. Like, what have you been up to? It's just like, oh, like, what do you need help with today? What do you need help
Yeah.
with this week? And making
Mhm.
it a tiny ask, right? Or a tiny offer of help. I think that's been very helpful for me to stay in touch with people that I care about.
Is there anything that you do to help yourself track that at all?
I wish I could tell you yes. And I love the leading question there. Absolutely, I will say I don't track it, but I do try to be very intentional about if it's Wednesday or Thursday and I haven't done it, then I will do that. I also have started.
That's a part of, like, a habit that you've created for yourself.
Yeah, I'm creating more habits. I will say one thing that I do also do with one of my friends slash colleagues is now we schedule in once a month that we will check in with each other, and it's very asynchronous, but we have it in our calendar, and it's not a Zoom, it's not an actual appointment. We just text each other on that day of the month and say, have you done a new piece of content for this month? And
Yeah.
that's all, right?
Yep.
Just to make sure that we are hitting our content goals and to see if we need help from each other, or if we just need that extra encouragement of like, hey, have you done it? Okay, are you going to be able to do it by the end of the day? Let's try to encourage each other to do that. So I find having calendar invites is also super helpful, but not even for actual meetings, just for.
An actual meeting, yeah. No
Yeah.
stress to, like, actually get on Zoom or whatever. Just yeah.
No, yeah, and no, right? Because sometimes introverts, right? We don't necessarily always want to be on camera or even on voice. I
Yep.
think about, I have so many friends who leave me voice notes, and I love hearing voice notes from some of those folks.
I'm that friend that leaves the voice notes.
Yeah, I love hearing those voice notes from some folks, especially the friends, but there's strangers who leave me voice notes, and I don't want
Yeah.
any of that. I don't want
Yeah.
any of the stranger voice notes.
I'm trying to think, do I send any voice notes to strangers? I mean, maybe like if somebody hears me on a webinar or training and they say, "Oh, just saw you on this webinar," and then I'll voice note
No,
back.
that's totally different. That's totally different.
They started the conversation, yeah.
Okay.
Then I will get people who start the conversation. They'll be like, "Hi, Goldie, I have something important to tell you." And then it's just
Oh,
a
no, no,
voice
no, no,
note.
no, 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 no. It's them saying, "Just saw you." Yeah.
And as an introvert with anxiety, that's basically like sending
A
me
little
a
too much.
breakup message, right?
That's
Like,
no, it's worse than a breakup message. It's like sending you a message. It's like the "we need to talk" message.
it is the weenies. It's like, "Hey, Goldie, I have something super important to tell you." And then it's a voice note, and it's always really long. And I
Yeah.
get this all the time in my LinkedIn inbox. It'll be like 5 minutes long, and I'm like, "Are you mad at me?" Number one assumption, right?
Oh, no, I do keep mine to like a minute to 2 at most. Like, if I see it's over 2, I'm like, "Candace is gonna hate me for this. I need to shorten it."
No, and that's perfect. That's perfect. I'm just saying, also, I have friends who leave me delightful, incredibly long, 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 long voice notes, and I love those. That's different. But
Yeah.
voice notes from strangers to an
Yeah,
introvert with
agreed.
Right.
anxiety, no.
Mhm.
No. Hard pass.
Hard pass.
So, Goldie, when it comes to starting to become visible and
Yes.
developing your personal brand, being the one that's owning that story when you're in the room, what are some low lift ways? Because you pivoted hard from video to writing, right? That's the
Yeah.
completely different
Yes.
mediums, at least on paper. So, having done the 800 videos and now having written a book and you're active on LinkedIn, what are some low lift ways to create visibility for the introverts in the audience?
Yeah, so I like to think about our the way we have financial banks. We have bank accounts, right? So we have bank accounts and we have that for our money and we have that for our financial stability. What if we had the same idea, but for our content? So I call this an evergreen content bank. It's where we deposit into. And I will also describe something that we also withdraw from in a minute. But I find that this is so helpful that when I get 1 or 2 hours a month, right, I will sit down and I will try to add to my delightful content bank. And my content bank is all evergreen content. It can be images, it can be text posts, it can be a variety of different things, long form articles. I have so much content stored in my content bank. The reason being is maybe sometimes what I want to do is I want to post, but I don't want to have to draft something original. Having a content bank is a really nice, easy, lower lift way of having so much stored up that I can post honestly at any point in time this month, and I will have something original to share. Now, I want to also share something else that I call the withdrawal part of that bank account, and that's a reply bank. So, if you commonly get questions asked to you, for example, they might say, I love the Not Nice Clever podcast. Can I guest on it? I've never been on a podcast before in my life. Maybe there's a templated response for that you want to
Mm.
give. And that's part of your reply bank is you make a template that of course you can modify and you have a reply bank of the most common questions that you get. And this saves time and energy. So you're not always searching. You're not always saying, well, for us, you have to fill out this form. Here's the link to the form. And you're like, where's the link to the form? I need to find the link to the form. So I think just
I hate
having,
finding links to forms.
I
I'm
hate
like,
finding links to forms and links to things. So just having that templated response that you, of course, will edit based on who it's for, just
Mhm.
ready to go, even if it's on a simple Word doc that you share. That is so much better than having to draft new responses every single time. So, two things: an evergreen content bank that you deposit into, and then a reply bank that you are constantly withdrawing out of.
Can I ask how you store the Evergreen content bank? Like, is it in a Google Drive or how do you store this?
So I store it in 2 places. I store it in Google Drive, but I also store it in Dropbox. And it depends
Mhm.
on what type of content it is. I tend to store a lot of my videos in Dropbox. And then in Google Drive is a lot more of those shared pieces that I need to be readily accessible, especially if any of it my editor needs to look at or anything like that. So I think anything shared and in the cloud is helpful. I will say this, I also occasionally, when I'm being good, back up directly to my desktop just so if I'm offline, I still have access to at least a portion of that content because I'll be somewhere with no internet and I'll want to work on some of this, but I don't always have
Mhm.
access to the cloud, right? You don't always have access to the
Mhm.
internet. So I think it's important to have at least a portion of your content bank accessible through, offline and through whatever it is you use to edit.
so Goldie, one thing we have not talked about yet, which I wonder if our clever crew watching this on YouTube is wondering too, the green hair. It's
Mm.
iconic. It is
Thank
my
you.
part of my mental image of you. The high contrast, colorful LinkedIn profile photo with the green hair. Was it intentional? Was it accidental? How do you see it now? Does it still fit you? Like, give us the green hair origin story.
Yeah, so I've had different colored hair for so long. I just love having colored hair. I think it's really fun. It's one of my favorite things. And it was
Yeah.
funny because in 2017, I happened to have green hair at the time when I blew up on LinkedIn. And thankfully, green actually is my favorite color. I love green. Green is the color of growth, right? It's color of
Mhm.
money in US currency. It's the color of it's just like it's such a delightful and soothing color at the same time. So it
Mhm.
actually is my favorite color. And so when I started to blow up on LinkedIn, people would start to use different emojis to represent me when they replied to me. And most often it would be the green heart emoji. And that's just so wonderful. And to this day, people will still use that when they talk to me. And I find, and there's actually a green book emoji, which I find really fun. So now I can respond to people with a green heart and a green book. Um, and that's how I landed on my green hair. And I will say there was a period of time, especially during that period when I was actively daily videoing it up, that I thought, oh my gosh, I really want to change my hair color because I'm so frustrated that I have to keep this
Mm,
hair color. And I think the moment anything becomes a have to in your life, it of course becomes really frustrating and less fun and less interesting to do. But one thing that we haven't talked about too is I'm actually a breast cancer survivor. So in 2022, I was diagnosed. I went through chemotherapy. I went through surgery. I actually lost all of my hair. So all of my iconic green hair, which the great
wow.
irony was I couldn't dye it also for months because the chemicals not
The
good,
chemicals, yeah.
and so my hair faded to this blue, and it was so upsetting. This like I think that was actually almost more upsetting than losing all my hair was that my hair had faded to this blue color and I couldn't do anything about it. And then I lost all of my hair because I was going through
Wow.
chemotherapy. And when I got my hair back, that was actually an inflection point for me to choose with my identity. How do I want to move forward with my
Mm,
identity? Do I want to dye my hair again? Do I want to dye it green? Do I not want to dye it at all? Um, how do I want to handle that? And I think that at the time, and this was really recent for me, um, I just really grappled with that decision and I thought it became more empowering for me to have green hair because I had hair again and I had the choice of dyeing my hair. And
Mhm.
that was really wonderful. And it made me actually fall back in love with a few things in my life going through the cancer journey. One
yeah.
was it made me fall back in love with having the green hair because I just could, right? Because when something becomes a can't,
Yeah. You felt like it was your choice to, like, get your identity back after
yes,
something like that. Yeah.
after something so traumatizing and so debilitating. So it was so wonderful to do that. And I also, had been burned out on LinkedIn for quite some time just because I was burned out. And then I went through a very intense physical journey where I was not posting on LinkedIn during that time.
No.
No. And so I've started posting again, and it's been really interesting and I think fun to come back to a place that I'm very familiar with as a very different person. And I think also as an introvert, I think introverts are so introspective and we're so thoughtful about who we are in the world, which I'm sure both of you,
Yes. Sometimes too much.
right? Both of
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know this feeling of thinking really sometimes critically about who you are and how you show up in the world and who you surround yourself with. And I think that at the time that I started being able to make those choices again, it was almost a comfort to go back to some of the places that I was familiar with as a different person, as a completely different person, as an adult. I it was almost
Mhm.
weird that that became like my rite of passage from feeling like a younger person to becoming an adult and going back to those places as an adult. So that was my journey with my green hair. It was, probably a lot more deep.
No, like we said, we are allergic to small talk, and
Yes,
everybody has a
yes,
story,
everyone
and
does.
I've noticed this too, like, one thing that I always keep in mind, now is when I'm going to events to have a signature look or something that people can recognize me for. Like, Candace has actually helped me, like, be very intentional about this with the conferences we've been going to the last few years, and one of my looks is a leather jacket with stars.
Oh,
And,
fun.
leather jackets they were worn by, motorcycle enthusiasts and motorcycle riders. It was like the symbol of rebellion.
Right.
And I'm very into astrology. And so I have the stars on there. So it's just like this conversation starter. But it's
Yeah.
not just that like I chose a leather jacket. It's like there's always been the rebel in me. And so, something as simple as green hair, there's always a story behind it, I feel.
I think that's so clever for branding to think about. Is there also one item that you wear, or for some people, maybe it's a hair color, right? Maybe it's your
Mhm.
glasses. It could be something as simple as that. But I think it should always also make you feel empowered
Yeah.
and feel good about yourself. Because if you feel uncomfortable, or you feel costumey, that's the funny thing is I have green hair, but I don't feel very costumey
Yeah.
in my green hair because I don't make it a costume, right? It's just part of my person. But I think once it becomes costumey, that's when we kind of enter into the zone where it feels uncomfortable. And what you want to be, especially as an introvert, existing in this very exhausting time is comfortable.
Always on the couch watching Netflix, just always.
Yes. Yes. Or curled up in the corner with the dog or the cat at the party.
Mhm. Yeah, both of them. The dog in one arm, and then the cat in the other.
Yes. Yes. Yes, totally.
If you can encourage an introvert to tattoo something on their brain, what is the thing you want them to carry with them?
Be brave.
Mhm,
I think what introverts excel at is preparation. Let's be real. I'm sure you have experienced this. I certainly have experienced this where I've been over prepared. I've been over prepared for something.
Yeah.
And then I don't actually do the thing. I prepare and I prepare and I prepare. Um, and I'm going to call this the cliff of opportunity. So we prepare, we prepare, we prepare. We go to the very edge of the cliff of opportunity. We stand and we look over the edge and we're like, I'm good. Then you walk backwards and you're like, and all that preparation, that beautiful preparation that you've done is for naught. But I think it requires a little bravery. And I'm going to say another word that I think it also requires a little bit of stupidity. I think it takes you a little bit of being a little stupid to jump off the cliff of opportunity.
you need to be a little delulu. Everyone knows that.
Yeah, you need to be a little delulu. Exactly. I think that so many people are so afraid of looking stupid that we
Mhm.
are actually just a little bit stupid when we need to be. Because I will tell you this, when I first started making videos on LinkedIn, which once again is an opportunity that opened so many doors for me, for the first 3 months, I also cannot tell you how many people said, "Don't do this. This is the stupidest idea I've ever heard. You should be on," and this is really funny to say now, in 2017, people were saying, "You should be on Facebook video or YouTube." And YouTube still makes sense, of course, but Facebook video. So people were just like,
I didn't even know Facebook video was a thing. Like, I missed that in the little blip that it was a thing.
exactly, exactly. So people were offering all sorts of, good advice, and I lost friends during this time. I actually lost colleagues.
Mm.
People stopped talking to me. They said I was doing something so obnoxious and so weird and so out of left field that they didn't want to talk to me anymore because I was being unreasonable and stupid. And I heard this from so many different people, and it's really funny to me because 100% all of those people are now posting on LinkedIn. So every single one of them are now, and some of them are posting LinkedIn videos years later. Um, but all that being said is, we'll leave them nameless. But all that being said is, I had all these years of preparation where I was not on camera, but I just had worked in branding marketing for so long. I had all that preparation and I hit the cliff of opportunity and I looked over the edge and I saw LinkedIn videos for better or for worse. And I thought, I'm going to make this jump. I'm just going to see what happens. And I took that leap of faith. I took that leap of stupidity or bravery. I was
Mhm.
brave and I jumped. And as I jumped, all of these magical opportunities and doors opened for me that would have never, or maybe they would have opened for me, but I would have had to do something else to open those doors because they
Mhm.
weren't opening through, quite frankly, me working at a 9 to 5 job, very behind the scenes, very quiet, very introverted.
Yep.
So it
Mm.
was a very interesting for me leap of faith that I took, and a little bit of being stupid, but also a little bit of being brave because so many people told me I was wrong at the time. And
Mm.
this is what I've learned from being a little bit of a trailblazer in a space is when people tell you you're wrong as a trailblazer, either you are very, very wrong or you're actually very, very right. And it's one of the two.
Mhm.
Mhm. That's so helpful. Before we hop into today's not nice advice, I wanted to tell the clever crew where they can get their hands on your book one more time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So absolutely you can buy my books wherever books are sold. Very specifically, you can get it very easily on Amazon. And if you do leave a review, they very much help. You can also get it at Barnes and Noble in person, and you can get it at so many indie bookstores all over the US. And you can go into your local bookstore and request it. So do that.
Congratulations on your book launch. That is incredible.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I was gonna say, please request at your local bookstore. I'm such a big fan of, if they can get part of that sale, please give them that sale. It helps. So, yes.
Okay, not nice advice. One of our listeners wrote in and they said that they've noticed lately when I need to make a decision, I always ask multiple people for feedback, but end up with 10 different opinions and zero clarity. Funny how we were just kind of talking about this.
Of course.
I'm starting to think that getting feedback in quotation marks is holding me back. Am I crowdsourcing my confidence? How much feedback is too much? And this is from Paralyzed by Opinions.
Ooh, what a great, I like that paralyzed by opinions. So I will say what you are actually crowdsourcing. Are you ready, listener, dear listener? You are crowdsourcing fear, not
Yeah.
crowdsourcing confidence.
Mhm.
Because if you were crowdsourcing confidence, you would feel sure in what you were choosing. But you're crowdsourcing fear. And I think fear versus ego, this is one of my favorite definitions too. I have a couple of favorite definitions, but to me, fear is always that voice that goes, you can't do it. Absolutely not. What are you thinking? Who are you to think that? Right? It's so loud. It has a million different voices versus your gut is the one that says, oh, I don't want to work with them. Right? Or your gut is the one that says, ooh, icky situation ahead, right? I don't know why I don't like this, but I don't like this. Or your gut says, there's something about this that makes me incredibly excited. There's something
Mhm.
about this that makes me think, I don't know why, but it's right. And we've had those feelings before. Our gut is to me when two Lego blocks just click together, right? It's that perfect click of the Lego blocks versus fear is fear is if you've ever and this is shows you what kind of friends say something like that. If you've ever taken slime and actually thrown it against a wall and it like kind of sticks and it's like and it's really gross. That is to me what fear is. It's this sticky substance that gets into your brain and your thoughts, and you can't get over it because you're focused on all of these things that don't really matter. So when you're crowdsourcing fear, that's not very helpful. But of course, it's so helpful to have people around you that you can get opinions and advice on. But I'll go back to my be brave, be stupid. I think that it's really helpful that when you have something, you have a decision, and I want you to just sit and I know introverts are great at this, so you can 100% do this. I want you to sit quietly and almost meditatively, but I'm not saying meditate because some people, busy brains, it's a little hard to meditate, but
Yeah.
sit quietly and give yourself a full 2 minutes. The worst. I know this is the worst. To not be on any digital device. Don't even turn on the wave sounds, right? Don't even turn on the lo-fi track. No digital devices. And you sit there for 2 minutes. And if you can't do 2 minutes, do 1 minute. But it has to be at least 60 seconds. Sit there for 2 minutes, set your alarm, and then put it aside. And you're going to really just check your gut. You're going to ask yourself, what do I think is the right choice? And you're going to sit there with the silence of your own thoughts, your own non AI generated thoughts, and you're going to come up with an answer that might be, I have no idea. Or that answer might be, oh, option A. There's something about option A that's really enticing to me. And this is the beginning of not crowdsourcing your fear. It's the beginning of self-sourcing your confidence.
That is the title of your next book. Or it's probably a theme throughout your book, I'm sure.
Yes.
Oh, that's so good, Goldie. We need like a virtual mic for like when our guests seriously,
I hope that helps because I myself know that when I try to crowdsource, especially from too many people, what should I do in a difficult situation? The situation 99% of the time becomes more difficult.
Yeah.
It really does.
Gotta trust your gut.
Yeah, I think this is why, I use Taylor Swift as an example in my book.
Oh, love. Okay, definitely buying the book.
Because she's an introvert, right? And so I think that Taylor Swift has the smallest of small circles, and I think she has that for many reasons because she's a pop star and it's very, I'm sure, overwhelming for her. But also, I think part of that is if you are crowdsourcing and saying your inner circle is 30 people, you're going to get 30 opinions. If you're crowdsourcing to your inner circle and your inner circle is truly 3 to 5 people that you absolutely trust with your life, that will bury that body out and back with you,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Um,
I know those people.
they have the trash bags. They that's a little bit more manageable to get a few different opinions on, right?
Yep.
And I also think that sometimes though, when we get opinions, it's still helpful to get those opinions one-on-one because I'm sure we have all been in group chats. We have all been in group chats where we start to get the group think too. And then the group think also becomes confusing because one person will say something and then another person in the group chat doesn't want to go against that. So then it becomes a very much like, yes, yes, yes party.
Such great advice, Goldie. Thank you so much for spending this time with us. We are
Thank
so excited for
you.
you for the launch of your book. We're
Thank
definitely
you.
going to be grabbing it, and we hope the Clever
Yes.
Crew does too. Thanks for joining us on Not Nice, Clever.
Remember to follow Not Nice Clever wherever you listen to audio.
And if you haven't already, drop that 5-star review.
Share your takeaways, tell us your story. We love to hear it.
Signing off, you're not so nice, but oh so clever besties that mean business.
See you soon.